You are watching Market Pulse Daily, heading into the new week, Sunday, May 24, 2026. If you want a clean daily read on macro and market risk, subscribe for the next briefing. Middle East peace deal sparks rally, AI takes over trading floors. Today's agenda: week in review, Bitcoin and crypto update, gold and silver snapshot, oil and commodities watch, FX and dollar update, stock market outlook. Let's start with a look back at the big picture from the past week. This week in markets was truly transformative. We saw a historic de-escalation in the Middle East, which sent shockwaves through commodity markets, particularly oil. This development is expected to significantly lower inflation fears, a major hurdle for risk assets. On the other side of the coin, artificial intelligence has solidified its position not just as a tool, but as the dominant force in trading. Algorithms are increasingly driving price discovery, especially in the volatile crypto space. Gold is trading at about $4,520, slightly lower on the day. Gold, while still elevated due to central bank buying, saw a slight dip as inflation concerns cooled. Major stock indexes, including the S&P 500 and the Dow Jones, pushed higher, with the Dow even hitting new record highs. The narrative is clear: geopolitical calm and AI-driven efficiency are setting a bullish tone for the markets. Now, let's look at today's picture. Here's where things stand right now in the crypto markets. The cryptocurrency market is showing impressive resilience this Sunday. Despite extreme fear reading on the sentiment index, Bitcoin is trading up about 2% at over about $76,000, with Ethereum and other major coins also in the green. This strength is happening even as many investors feel fearful. Why? Because the data tells a different story. Exchange reserves are at a 7-year low, meaning there are fewer coins available to sell. This scarcity, combined with strong whale accumulation, the most since 2013, suggests that smart money is buying the dip. The correlation between crypto and AI infrastructure is also growing, meaning algorithmic bots will likely drive short-term moves in volatile altcoins. For Bitcoin, the key level to watch is a break above about $80,000, which could be fueled by continued ETF inflows and sustained whale buying. The Clarity ACT vote today could also add some fireworks to the crypto space. Moving on to precious metals, here's the latest on gold and silver. Precious metals are showing stability this Sunday. Gold is trading at about $4,520, slightly lower on the day. Silver prices are also holding steady, though regional variations exist. While the cooling inflation fears might suggest a dip for gold, its appeal remains strong. Central banks are still actively accumulating gold, providing a solid base for prices. This ongoing demand is a key factor to watch. Remember, gold's role as a store of value often aligns with Bitcoin's narrative, especially when there are concerns about the value of fiat currencies. So, even with easing inflation, keep an eye on central bank actions and any signs of renewed economic uncertainty that could bring gold back into focus. Turning our attention to the energy markets, here's the latest on oil. Energy markets are in a holding pattern this Sunday, with WTI crude hovering around about $97 a barrel. This comes after a massive 13.9% single-day drop last Friday, triggered by the groundbreaking news of a peace deal in the Middle East. The big story here is the expected reopening of the Strait of Hormuz, a critical artery for global oil supply. WTI crude is trading at about $97. Slightly higher on the day. WTI crude is trading at about $97, slightly higher on the day. The current stabilization shows a cautious optimism, but the real test will be the actual reopening of the strait and any sustained peace in the region. Watch closely for official confirmations and any signs of lingering tensions. Let's turn our attention to the currency markets and the US dollar. In the currency markets this Sunday, the US dollar is holding steady near key levels, with the euro trading around 1.08 against the dollar. The dollar index, or the dollar index, is also in a similar holding pattern. This stability comes as global markets are processing the significant geopolitical news and trying to gauge the Federal Reserve's next move. The dollar's path forward is closely tied to the Federal Reserve's stance on inflation and interest rates. With easing geopolitical tensions, there's less of a flight to safety demand for the dollar, which could put some pressure on it. However, the Federal Reserve's policy decisions remain the dominant factor. Keep a close eye on any statements from Federal Reserve officials this week, as their words will be critical in shaping currency movements and the dollar's direction. Now, let's look at where the stock markets closed on Friday and what to watch. U.S. stock markets ended last week on a high note, marking their 8th consecutive winning week. The Dow Jones Industrial Average even hit new record highs, while the S&P 500 closed Friday just shy of its all-time peak. This bullish sentiment is largely driven by the positive developments in the Middle East, which are easing inflation fears and reducing the likelihood of further interest rate hikes from the Federal Reserve. This is great news for rate-sensitive sectors like housing and autos. On top of that, the undeniable rise of AI is creating new opportunities and driving innovation, particularly in the tech space. As we head into the new week, watch for continued rotation into these rate-sensitive areas and listen closely to any signals from the Federal Reserve regarding their inflation outlook and future rate decisions. The optimism is palpable, but staying informed is key. Latest snapshot: crypto is live, closed markets show Friday close. Now for the latest market snapshot. Because this is the Sunday edition, stocks, bond yields, and several traditional market series have not traded since Friday. For those assets, these are the latest available closing levels from May 22, 2026. Crypto remains live through the weekend, and futures update only when their weekend sessions reopen. Gold is trading at about $4,520, slightly lower on the day, and is slightly lower over the past 5 sessions. Silver is at about $76, slightly lower today and lower over the past 5 sessions. In crypto, Bitcoin is at about $76,700, higher on the session and flat over the past 5 sessions. Ethereum is at about $2,100, higher today. Other major crypto, Solana at about $86, higher. BNB at about $654, slightly higher. XRP at about $1.359, higher. At the Friday close for equities, the S&P 500 at 7,473.5, slightly higher. The Nasdaq at 26,344, slightly higher. The Dow at 50,579.7, slightly higher. For international equity markets, the latest available closes show the DAX at 24,888.6, higher, the Nikkei at 63,339.1, higher, the FTSE at 10,466.3, slightly higher. On bonds using Friday closing yields, the 10-year U.S. Treasury yield is at 4.6%, slightly lower at the Friday close, and the 30-year yield is at 5.1%, slightly lower. Elevated yields continue to place pressure on risk assets and growth valuations. Rounding out the macro picture, with weakened sensitive assets shown at their latest available levels, WTI crude at about $97 per barrel, slightly higher. The dollar index at 99.32, slightly higher. Euro dollar at 1.161, slightly lower. The overall tone is risk-on. Equities and crypto are both bid, suggesting investors are positioned for continued upside in the near term. This week saw a dramatic shift with geopolitical de-escalation, boosting risk sentiment and setting the stage for potential rate cuts. AI's increasing influence is undeniable, reshaping how markets operate and creating new opportunities. Thank you for your attention, and we will see you again tomorrow.